Thank you, Costas. I'll just take a quick second to introduce myself. My name is Sean Correa. I'm from McMaster University. I've been working with Costas and the OSET team over the last few weeks to facilitate one of your guest speakers tonight at this virtual conference. It's something we're very excited to facilitate today. To give you a bit of context, we lead a new professional certificate program with McMaster, and it's a pleasure to introduce Jamie, who is one of the speakers, one of 50 speakers on our industry leadership and management program. It's really geared towards professionals, and we found that his topic on operational resilience really spoke to the content being delivered at this conference today. So very happy to facilitate it and introduce Jamie. Jamie is the Director of Advanced Weapons Strategy at Northrop Grumman Aeronautics Systems. Some of the projects he's covered before, but I'm sure he's going to go in more detail during his presentation, involved the hypersonic weapon development, the Grey Wolf low-cost cruise missile demonstration, the advanced air missile engagement concepts as well. He's also served on active duty with the US Navy for 27 years as a naval flight officer, an aerospace engineering duty officer, and major defense acquisition programs manager. He's led multiple aircraft test programs, including the EA-18G Growler developmental flight test program and the X-47B carrier demonstration program, to name just a few of the various projects that he's oversaw. He's also a member of the advisory council for the Precision Strike Association. So on that note, it's my pleasure to introduce Jamie, covering his topic on operation resilience, and at the end, well, I'm sure we'll have a moment for questions and answers, and then we'll talk about our event tomorrow as well. So on that note, I'll hand it over to you, Jamie.
Okay, good evening, and yes, thank you for that good introduction. It'll shorten my comments just a little bit, and hopefully what we want to do, operational resilience, or what that means in a business, is a kind of a difficult, sometimes boring topic. And so what I want to do is bring a little bit of, take you out of the business mindset and put you into the cockpit of a military jet, or, thinking about advanced, autonomous vehicles, and how you might apply, as things start going wrong, what tools we might apply to turn failure into success. So I am, as Ashen told you all, I'm a retired US Navy captain, spent all of my career in the cockpit as an electronic warfare officer. I went through flight test pilot school, and then ended up spending the last 20 years of my career as an aeronautical engineering duty officer, doing the business side of Navy acquisition, and then retired a few years ago to work for Northrop Grumman. So what we're going to talk about today is a program called Advanced Tactical FLIR. We'll talk about a program called Navy Unmanned Combat Air System. I'll give you a little bit more description of that. And then a missile program that we did called Long Range Anti-Ship Missile, which was key to continuing our ability to strike ships at extended distances. And one of the things that really late in my military career, what we started seeing was, if you look at this over the period of the last 9 years of my military career, we actually, the teams that I worked with somehow had collected 9 national awards, and became known as winning teams in excellence in acquisition, in flight test. Very, very proud of even outside of the military acquisition regime. We won a Breakthrough Innovator Award for some of the work we did on autonomous systems, autonomous aircraft, and you'll see that. And so when we started talking about operational resilience, the programs that we run were very complex, and you see a lot of failures in those kind of complex production lines, complex acquisition programs, large multi-billion-dollar construction programs. And so the question is, why could we take these acquisition programs and what common themes might drive success, and what approaches might we take to win more than we lose? Before I start, I'm going to give you also a context on operational resilience. And the talk, what I'm going to do is use some firsthand knowledge, tell you a handful of stories about our adventures in the military acquisition in these high technology programs. And then think operational resilience really is the ability of systems, of organizations to resist, absorb, and recover from or adapt to an adverse occurrence during operations that may cause harm, destruction, or loss of ability to perform mission-related functions. So that's across all the different business areas. And again, we're going to concentrate on the regimes of aircraft flight test. We'll give you a production example. I'll talk generally about leadership and how to build teams that also and imbue them with this idea of operational resilience. Let me go back first, and my kind of my capstone story is that as I progressed through my military career, and I got to my first tour as a Navy captain, I recall the story well on the 7th of December 2010, when my boss, a 2-star admiral in the Navy, called me into his office, and he told me, "Hey, congratulations on being selected to be the program manager for the Navy Unmanned Combat Air System. And again, in front of you is a very, very unique robotic autonomous aircraft. Weighs about 45,000 pounds, full-size aircraft, has bomb bays, the capability to carry about 4,000 pounds of payload, no tails, no cockpit, really fully autonomous, really doesn't have a standard unmanned systems control system. And oh, by the way, what we need to do is land this vehicle on the aircraft carrier so that we can project power. My boss, he sat me down and he said, "Hey, you're the right guy to do this. But I got to tell you, this program is going to fail." Right? We just did a full review with the Chief of Naval Operations, and we just don't have enough money. We don't have enough schedule to be able to go do a demonstration like this. But it's okay because when you do fail, we'll take care of you. And so about 3 weeks later, I got up on the podium for my change of command ceremony and announced that in 900 days that we're going to land this aircraft on the aircraft carrier, and we're going to figure out how to make it happen. So out of certain failure. They're 894 days later and $43.6 million under budget. We're able to accomplish this goal. Now, I'm going to be a little bit bold here, and I'll see whether or not I can. A lot of times, folks have a hard time, getting the perspective of what we did. So I'm going to see if I can't play a quick video for you. So as you can see out on the carrier flight deck, and again, no man, completely autonomous. And our goal was to seamlessly integrate this aircraft into standard flight deck operations for the aircraft carrier. Okay. So just to give you a quick background, and again, that was a pretty exciting time back there. And I will tell you, with all that with all that excitement, there was a very challenging program. So I'm going to start at the top in terms of from organizational and operational resilience. I always like to talk about key leadership principles. I am a big reader, and I will tell you that from my management best practices. There's a book called A Leadership Challenge that I recommend that you read. Really, really good, talking about effective leadership and the ability to really capture the heart of the folks that work with you and for you in an organization. And I will note that management in a business and leadership are completely different things. Management is all about process control and hiring, and leadership is about leading through change and making people comfortable with going forward into the unknown. In a leadership change, they talk about they do over 20 years worth of detailed assessments and studies on what people think the most important characteristics of admired leaders are. And as you would expect, that the number one thing that people look at when they for a leader is honesty, and then competence also ranks up in the higher areas. But one of the things to really think about and really focus on as a leader inside of an organization are the other two, which the idea of being an inspirational leader is really that's a very difficult thing to do in the business realm, and then to be forward looking. And so when we talk about leadership, of course, honest and competency, but the idea of somebody who inspires you, who is aligned with your vision, and is looking forward into the future is what really makes you a leader. And one of the things that we did during my management tours was to set the vision very, very clearly about the ambitious, high-risk goals, the excellent communication to people. And I have time, I'll tell you a story about the importance of communications, align the values and incentives with the organization, and really probably the most important is to think out of the box, think innovative, pressured execution, and use managed risk. And again, I have an example of how we do that, because we were in the business of high technology and creating enduring, game-changing products. Talked a little bit about the leading change. Another book that I highly recommend that you read is a book called Leading Change. And in it, John Kotter talks about the necessity as you go through these very challenging programs to establish a sense of urgency inside of the team and create a powerful guiding coalition. And when we were doing these military programs, we had senior leadership in the Navy that was clearing the way and making sure that we had what we needed in terms of priorities and in terms of the working through anything that we needed to. I talked about creating a clear vision for the future, and then what we need to do is to spend 95% of your time over communicating that vision. It's not good enough to put together a vision for the future and then paste it up on the wall. You, as a leader, need to over communicate that, and you should be spending 95% of your time communicating the vision, the carrier landing that is ahead of us. It's important to remove obstacles and to create the opportunity for your team to move forward. And then there's also, as you go through, you need quick wins. You need systematic progression of short-term wins, and get the team used to winning as you go towards the larger goals. And then make sure a lot of these change efforts that go on inside of business take 3, 5, even 8 years to accomplish. So one of the biggest mistakes is to declare victory too soon and allow your competitors to overrun you as you're leading through these change. And then the last goal is to anchor that change in the culture of your corporation. And I have a example of that. So I've talked about high performance teams. And again, that's something that as we went through and we looked at what it takes to win, right? We can't just collect a group of functional folks. What we found in the E-18G flight test program, in the Navy Unmanned Combat Air System program, and the Long Range Anti-Ship Missile program, is that we had a core of experts that had like-minded goals. We always kept the teams small, sometimes just a couple dozen folks running large major acquisition programs. They were very good at networking and building communication across everything. And they all knew when to go and strategize by themselves and then bring that idea back to the group. One of the things, with small high performance teams is they're very cross-functional. And a lot of times we'd have flight test folks that would do the engineering side of the job. And you find that, especially in these high performance teams, a lot of communication and a lot of conflict, but the kind of positive conflict that you want with constructive communication and everything. When I set up, and I'll talk a little bit about the organizational constructs that we use, we set up the organizations so that the team was autonomous and was empowered to redesign the systems engineering strategy, systems engineering plan, to make internal decisions on how the team moved forward. And so the team, when they're experts, when they're working closer together, and you allow them, you empower them to make the decisions, it's a very, very powerful thing. And then they're all accountable to themselves and each other for the success of the team. And probably the biggest thing is once you have a high performing team, they're much more willing to take calculated risks, to understand exactly where that risk lies in the program and how to manage around that. So I recommend you take a good look at what the definition of high performance teams are, and then really try to push to make sure that the folks working around you and the teams that you can create meet those kind of that criteria. So I'll give you a couple of examples. The Navy Unmanned Combat Air System program, we ended up early on, there was a lot of conflict. There were 2 separate team leaders, and it was one where a mentor of mine reminded me of Conway's Law. It said any organization that designs a system will produce a design inside of that system whose structure is an exact copy of the organization's communication structure. And here we had a aircraft carrier team and we had an air vehicle team, and they were divided in the way that they were managing the program, the way they were spending the funding, and it was causing a lot of conflict, and it would not have led to success for the program. So what we did was we removed one of the team leaders, and we combined the entire program under a single lead. And we ended up, as we went through the design, the integration, and the flight test, we had 5 organizational alignments where we made sure that the organizational structure continued to push to exactly what we wanted, which was one aircraft landing on the aircraft carrier in a fully integrated autonomous fashion. As you can see, it was pretty successful. The other example I'll use in terms of organization that matters is when we stood up the long-range anti-ship missile program. And of course, my organization, the Naval Air Systems Command, was known for the bureaucracy and the lengthy timelines and the rigor that we put into these acquisition programs. And of course, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency was known for speed and for innovation and for doing things, in a fast and kind of risky way. So what we ended up doing was removing the entire Navy team from the confines of the Naval Air Systems Command. We put them on the 11th floor of the DARPA building. We told them, you are not beholden to the Navy bureaucracy. You are to innovate, you are to make your own processes, and you are to create. And of course, that program, we had to take what was originally planned as a 10-year-long program and compress that in to about 56 months. With the organizational construct, what we got was the speed and the innovation of DARPA with the rigor of the Naval Air Systems Command for that program. For folks in the audience that are in a production role and thinking about operational resilience and learning organizations, I'll give you an example of early in my acquisition career when they ran a program called Advanced Targeting Flare. And we had a really serious problem. The program was behind in production. The systems were costing over $1 million more than they were supposed to. The company that built the system was losing money, and it was just far too expensive for the Navy to continue. And again, this was a complex advanced technology, targeting system with electro-optics and infrared technologies. It had the highest power tactical laser in any system, and it had a very highly complex electro-optical camera, infrared and laser optical path. What we found was that there were just a massive number of defects in the production line. Originally we thought, hey, this is something we need to fix. And we were doing the standard thing in terms of trying to find the defects, but there were so many. We ended up putting together a industry tiger team and doing multiple Kaizen events, coming back to a capstone Kaizen event that took the better part of an afternoon, where we brought the production line folks in and started looking at it. And the findings were that the acceptance testing for the visual acuity of the pod was far too strict. In fact, I remember the day very well when they brought me up on the ceiling of the roof of the building, and we had a system all set up. And we said, remember, these pictures are going to be displayed on a 5x5 display in a Hornet cockpit like you see there in front of you. And they put it up on a 50-inch, high definition screen. And they said, this is the old visual acuity requirements, and these are the new visual acuity requirements. And there was no difference on a high fidelity, high definition screen. And so we dumbed down those visual acuity requirements. And what we found out was that the original requirements were creating a pretty much 100% rejection rate, and that the company was building these systems and rebuilding them like 4 times before they actually could meet the requirements. So we reduced the system testing requirements, and lo and behold, we doubled the rate of production. Same with, we found out that we were imposing a -50 and -70 degree cold testing requirements on every single system. And that every time we had a failure in that cold testing, we didn't take a look at it, we just broke it back down and rebuilt the system. And some of these systems, they would build them 17 times before they got them out the door. So we eliminated that. And in the course of an afternoon and in about 3 weeks of work, we ended up significantly improving the operational reliability. We doubled the production delivery rate. We got an on-time delivery time. And over the period of the next year, the cost of that system to the government went down 32%. And we ended up saving about $594 million for the United States government, all with an afternoon of Kaizen events. I'll talk also about when you have these high-risk programs, you have these technology programs, it is very, very important to use integrated program management to collect as many metrics as you can, to look across the entire program, use earned value management, use integrated master schedules, use very detailed change configuration management, and track everything about the program. Because it's those small changes in risk, those small changes in schedule, and I'll talk about schedule risk assessment, that can doom a program to failure. And you have to be able to identify those problems before they manifest and be able to implement corrective actions. So always, always challenge the process, ask for as much detail as possible in the integrated program metrics, listen to what the metrics are telling you. And that's probably a story I'll tell you about a young man just in his early 20s that was working our integrated master schedule. And every month he would hand me a single piece of paper that was his assessment of the schedule. And it went directly from an employee directly to the program manager, me, and bypassed all of the cross checks and everything. And one day he brought me that piece of paper, and it said that if you don't make 3 critical changes in the way you run this program, it's going to fail. And so we actually made some major software changes. We made some major changes in the risk profile of the program, and again kept the program on track. Let me talk a little bit about a very valuable tool, which is the idea of pre-mortem risk analysis. Back in early 2011, we ran an exercise, and you can see in the slide, the team brought it back to me, and it was, what keeps the captain up at night, and what you all should be losing sleep over. And we put together 17 failure scenarios for the Unmanned Combat Air System program. So let me talk a little bit about pre-mortem risk brainstorming and analysis. The first thing to do is to get out of the day-to-day execution of the program and get into, and sometimes it's difficult to get the team into a mindset where you're like, okay, we just failed, right? Imagine 2 years from now, and I'll give you an example, complete program failure. What happens? Everyone throws out their ideas. What exactly happened? We put together the causal factors, and then we decide what we're going to do to make sure that that doesn't happen. Good risk management. And then we implement those risk mitigation steps, right? And if you read about the Space Shuttle Challenger, and the Columbia disasters, the Chernobyl disaster, even Boeing 737 MAX, there's a different kind of perspective, and of course, ultimately some program challenges. So the interesting thing is that, so we imagined back in 2011, 2 years before the demonstration, 17 disaster scenarios. And you'll see those there. And believe it or not, 9 of them happened. And I'll tell you about one of them that I will remember until the end of time. Was there, we only have 12 aircraft carriers in the United States Navy. They are national assets, they're operational assets. And we only had one to be able to execute the demonstration. And it took about $6 or $7 million of hardware installation to get everything on the carrier. And so we were assigned the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower as a carrier. And I forget which one it is, but one of those was what happens if the carrier is not available? We just spent almost $1 billion for nothing. And I remember the day in 2012 when I got the phone call that the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower was sortied out of Virginia to go overseas with all of our carrier demonstration equipment on board. And if we had not done this exercise, we would not have had a carrier. But luckily, during the time about a year prior, we had found another aircraft carrier. We had finagled equipment on board. We would, even though that carrier was not available to us, we had made sure that we got the equipment on board. We did the installation and spent some extra money to complete the installation. And lo and behold, if you notice what aircraft carrier we did, it was CVN-77, the George H.W. Bush. All because we had done a pre-mortem risk analysis and we'd actually done something over a year prior to our ultimate fiasco that would have happened. Very, very powerful tool. Another tool, and every good program should have an integrated master schedule. And so we used to do continuous schedule risk assessments. And the value is not in the process. The value is in the interviews with the cost account managers who are managing all of the individual tasks, and to dig down and to interview all the cost account managers as you're doing a schedule risk assessment. Ask them, what is the best case? And what does it take to execute that best case? What is the most likely case? And then what is the worst case scenario of failure? And what can we do right now to mitigate that? And when you take 1,900 different tasks and you wrap them all up, or over 4,000 tasks into an integrated master schedule, and you do a schedule risk assessment where you look at the critical path and you bounce the best case, most likely case, and the worst case, what comes out is a realistic risk of your program execution, but it also provides you with a list of things that you can do to accelerate your schedule and also to reduce the risk for some of the most risky tasks in your schedule. And oh, by the way, for both the Navy UCAS program and for the LRASM program, we ran those. We called the team the 1% Club because there was always less than 1% probability that they were going to be able to execute the schedule in front of them. And yet we were able to execute that because we took a really very, very close look at the opportunities and the risks and did some forward thinking before actual issues happened. Think critically about how you can drive the strategic schedule execution. So I've gone through quite a bit of lists of tools and things to think about. One of the things I have done over my career is read many, many books about leadership and about process improvement. I've listed 5 of my favorites that each one that I've read multiple times and given me a very good idea, of how exactly do we apply leadership and execution in these kind of high risk environments. I already mentioned the Leadership Challenge, and I read that book about once every 2 years. The High Velocity Edge talks about really the multiple organizations and the efficiency, and has a deep dive on the Toyota production system, and is a very, very good book to really kind of shift your mind. I mentioned John Cotter's Leading Change, and if you don't have time to read the book, he also wrote a paper about the 8 things that you can do to make sure that change doesn't happen in your organization. For communication for teams, there's a great book called Made to Stick. And then there's a very interesting book about the Navy nuclear program and Commander David Marquette. That's also. And then I also urge you, one of the best things to do in terms of working to become an inspirational leader in your organization is to pick some of your heroes and read about why they were an inspirational leader, and then how they might how you might implement some of those best practices that they have. So when you have that debate about whether leaders are built or whether they're born that way, it's very obvious. My leadership principles came from all the books I read over my career. To kind of to go back through, and I know this has been a pretty rapid, lot of information, and in and out of context of your, where you are in your career and what you might, be able to do. And of course, it is a perspective from a senior, military leader. The conclusion is the first thing to do is make sure that the people that work with you and work for you understand your vision and really focus. In fact, over the last several years inside of Northrop Grumman, I have really focused on what is inspirational and what is forward thinking beyond. Your team is going just trying to make it through the week, just trying to make it through the next month. And your job is to look at the 5-year and the 10-year vision for where the organization goes. And that inspiration, that forward thinking is going to be what aligns them to your business. Again, don't be shy about making organizational changes. You really have to, again, look at high performance teams. You have to make the change. And I will tell you something, living inside of bureaucratic organizations, that if you want to do something high risk, if you want to kind of change the nature, you want to do some innovative things, you can't run that inside of a standard bureaucratic organization. You've got to figure out how to create a cell and make the organizational construct, again, mirror the product that you're trying to get out the door. Can't say enough about high performance teams. And again, all of the major programs that we've done have had the same characteristics: small size, big goals, usually experienced, empowered folks that are accountable to themselves for the ultimate solution, and that they do have significant conflict, but it's constructive communication, it's constructive conflict that gets the risks illuminated, it gets the risks reduced, and ultimately points you towards the success of the program. And then, like I talked about, integrated program metrics. I love earned value management because it's a weekly look at exactly where you are on cost, schedule, performance, budget, risk, configuration. And I never let people go without diving into why you see anomalies in the program and what are we going to do to make sure that that doesn't propagate into ultimately the system solution. And then the most important thing, and I talked about a couple of tools to really introduce resiliency into your organization, is to understand your risks, to not just go through the process, but identify the risks as early as possible. And one of the things I will tell you is when we ran this risk exercise, that I talk about the things that keeps the captain up at night, that the first cut that my team, when they brought the 17 program killers back to me, they said, there's no way to reduce the risk. These are just things that if they happen, the program's going to fail. And of course, we sent them back to the drawing board to say, yes, these things, if they happen, we don't want the program to fail. So I want you to find innovative solutions, political solutions, to make sure that those risks are taken care of and they're put to bed. And the same thing, we didn't really talk about affordability, but again, on the risk side, we also had an affordability program that we took every opportunity to reduce the cost of our programs so that we remain in budget and ultimately can come in under budget. So, and again, hopefully some real life examples of how organizational resilience comes from thinking ahead, from measuring the metrics that are coming out of your program, and then ultimately influencing those strategic outcomes. We during many of the programs that I ran, then Secretary Sean Stackley was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and he sat down one day and he told us, it's pretty easy. Program management is very simple. You establish your objective, you map a direct path to the success through earned value management, integrated master schedules, and then you proceed until apprehended. And I flowed that down into my teams and even, beyond my my Navy career. And that has been a very, very powerful message to folks inside of an organization, inside of a company that feel like they're empowered to make programs happen. So that completes my my brief. Let's see, I think we have about 25 minutes for any questions that that you might have. And again, I know I went through the material pretty quickly, but happy to address anything.
Thank you, Jamie. That was an interesting presentation, my friend. There's a few concepts that you touched on that I wasn't aware of, and now that you mentioned them, I'm kind of like, oh, that's interesting. For example, I got a note here, a pre-mortem report. I mean, I've come from a background of marketing, and we're constantly doing postmortems after the fact. We were in an event and everything like that. And then when you say pre-mortem, I'm like, huh. I'm like, why haven't we thought of using something like this? Why haven't we had these conversations before we get going? Because we're always eager to kind of get on the ground with boots and get going on things, and sometimes overlook the obvious and potential risks that are ahead of us, right?
Right, and it goes right back into my my initial story about how I started that one program, is that it's actually very disruptive inside of a team for the leader, for somebody who's inside of the team to say, come on over here, come on, let's get into a conference room, and we're going to fail. So, let's talk about all the different ways that we can fail. There's this and this and this and this. And it's very disruptive. And a lot of people have a really hard time moving from post-mortem failure modes to pre-mortem. Let's take care of the things that might happen ahead of us. But it's good risk management.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. I mean, going back to your capstone project that you just mentioned here again, what goes through your mind when you're being handed this project and what you're being told is this project will fail? How do you internalize that and then take it and turn it into a success? I mean, that initial fear, what happens and what's your thought process there?
Well, and it's interesting because and it was something that I think that was developed even when I was young, that I do not accept somebody's pronouncement of failure. And so in my mind, the first thing was, okay, I'll show you. I just inherited this team, and that's why I said just a few weeks later, my response to that, you're going to fail, is, hey, 900 days from now, off the coast of Virginia, there will be an aircraft carrier, and there will be a autonomous system for the first time. Tactical aircraft land on the aircraft carrier, and then we'll figure it out from there. And that's where the projecting out the vision and thinking about the risks and really tightly managing and having a passion for ultimate success is how you have to do that.
How do you get the team, the existing team that you took over? How do you get them all of a sudden to take all these losses that they've been experiencing, or this mindset that's already been kind of maybe built into the group? And how do you shift that and turn that around with what you've inherited?
It's almost like a hiring process, and it's very carefully filtering. And when you read a leadership challenge, one of the first chapters talks about the fact but the people that work with you on these projects have to be aligned with that vision. And if they are not aligned with the vision and where you're going, then and in a common vision with their heart, then it's just not gonna work out. So usually what happens is even people who are high performers that do not subscribe to the vision that you have set out, you have to let them go. You have to realign the organization. And like I said, we had 2 teams, and I had a extremely skilled, very experienced person running one of my teams. And we just had to find something else for him to do and ultimately remove him from the team so that we could build the vision. So it's all about the kind of the hiring and the firing. And I'm glad you asked that question, because what we have found is that there's never a single person that's going to define success and failure in a team, especially a high performance team. So anybody can leave and everybody will come together and you bring in somebody new, and it's all going to be okay. The more important thing is you have to align the strategic vision. And when people go home at night and they come into work the next morning, they have to embrace what you're doing.
Very interesting. And I also like how you touched on focusing on wins. I mean, working in an environment like yours, based on your experience, where things already have such a high risk of failure inherently, or maybe not. You tell me, but focusing on those small victories and then providing that feedback back to the team, I bet that kind of takes a lot of the pressure off of the high failure rates, and maybe helps to kind of keep the team motivated to move forward, at least even if it's not something major. Small victory is still a small victory, and kind of reaffirming that with your team and letting them know that, I think that would probably have a very positive result within the group environment.
And something you can do, and I didn't mention, yeah, thanks for that question. That's really an interesting topic, is that feel free. One of the things we did on this program, it was a very high visibility, media heavy Navy program. So if you Google Jamie Engdahl, or if you Google Navy Unmanned Combat Air System, all the videos are out there, all the news articles are out there. And what I will tell you is that program was very tough. We had really significant technical issues. We had a lot of risks, and I talked a little bit about the aircraft carrier installation and availability and everything. But what we did was publicize the success. And we had kind of a cycle of we're either quiet and we're working hard on the things that are very difficult, or we're celebrating the success, and we celebrated success publicly with the media and with the public. So when you read the stories, it all looks positive, but that was part of the, every 3 months, every 6 months, we're going to find a win for the program, and we're going to go out and we're going to do something fascinating, and then we're going to get back to work.
You touched on leaders and if they're made or if they're born. I'm not sure what you think about this, but it is possible, I guess, also for experience and to mold leaders. Experience, and for your example for what you said, is how you've read a lot of books, and I'm sure you've had some mentors along the way to kind of help you and guide you through the decisions. So aside from the books that you have read, what else can you point at that's helped to guide you into becoming a great leader, and helping you work in such high stress situations or environments where the risk of failure is so high?
Well, and I wouldn't call myself a great leader. And that's good. Very, very insightful questions. Uh, from the audience. The uh, first, one of the anomalies is that when I grew up, I was very introverted, very shy. I did not, do any kind of this leadership stuff. And so it was really my desire to make a difference that necessitated developing a leadership vision that people would follow. So it's almost like from an engineering perspective, that was one of the skills that was necessary to develop. And I think that there are people that are naturally, extroverted and they love to deal with people and they're out talking to everybody that creates that perspective. But again, that's one of the things I love about the book, A Leadership Challenge, is that they make it very clear that it's not an internal genetic thing. It's a process that you go through to align yourself with, make sure you know where you're going, make sure you communicate that vision, make sure that you help the hearts of the people that encourage the hearts, and then they will do anything for you. And you don't have to be a natural born leader. Just the example. And I will say from a program risk perspective, that's a difficult one, and I think it's just I don't want to do just normal programs. I like to do fun, really exciting things.
I've got a question here from Larry. How often were the team alignment meeting check-ins to ensure all the teams were on track with their deliverables?
When we ran, and my favorite example, of course, is Navy Unmanned Combat Air System. We did a unusual thing we fully integrated the government and the industry team. And at 2:00 every Thursday afternoon, we spent about 2 hours going through the program. Full transparency. There was no layers of, let's take care of it before we go talk to the captain, because it was very clear that, everyone from me down wanted to know everything so that we could fix the problems as quickly as possible. So we did updates every week, and we checked in, and we kind of joked around that we would know if somebody's pet on the production line went to the vet, because if there was a little red thing at the top, we would go down 3 levels inside of the earned value management system to find out that Doug had to leave the production line for 4 hours to go take his cat to the vet. And that's why we see this little anomaly. We lost $250. We lost about 4 hours of schedule, and this is how we're going to get it back. And we led with that kind of detail. In fact, I got to the point where later on in the program, the company was delivering, and we were analyzing twice weekly earned value management. We didn't do it monthly. We did it weekly and twice weekly. And we called that our
Question
battle.
here from, sorry to interrupt you there. Got a question here from Jamie. From David, and you're Jamie. From your career experience, who was the greatest inspiration that guided you early on?
Great question, David. That's really tough. I'll give you two examples. There was a program manager when I first got to the Naval Air Systems Command, and I was a young lieutenant commander by the name of Captain Jeff Waranga that ran the F-18 program. And he was the one that really gave me the opportunity and saw, he saw people who took managed risks, who, led forward. And he was the one that gave me my first acquisition program to be able to work. And it was the Advanced Tactical FLIR program. And so I think he was the one that I watched. So that's from a tactical perspective. I will tell you that and I know I might be talking to a large group of Canadians mostly, but the most inspirational character it was probably George Washington. And I used to go out on these long runs. I was training for a marathon and listen to audiobooks about the life of George Washington and the things he would do out on the battlefield in the Revolutionary War that were just beyond what we have to do. And I always I always remember the picture of him sitting on his white horse with his sword drawn and just swinging around and hitting his troops and saying, forge ahead while the bullets are flying and everything. And that he really imbued and I'll tell you the historic leaders that you read about, they make a direct impression on you and they make you act sometimes very aggressively when you realize the kind of challenges they had in their life and the way that they managed them.
Okay, I got one word for you here, and this one's going to come from me. And you touched on this concept about forming a cell within an organization if you want to try to shepherd in some sort of innovative change or to bring something that's going against the grain. As a leader, how can you shield your team from the existing bureaucratic constructs, and how do you protect them to lead this innovation and change?
Perfect. I'm really glad you asked. Whoever asked that question, that's great. Because the example I will use is, I talked about Naval Air Systems Headquarters, and I talked about the way that we took the cell of folks and we moved them up to DARPA to run the program. And what I didn't tell you was that I had all the inside of the Naval Air Systems Command, I still had all the accountability for the budget and the contracts and the risk. And I had an admiral who was my boss that was the biggest road bump to this whole idea of innovative, speedy, agile access. So when we created the organization and the process, I decided to eliminate him from the chain of command, and I basically took a captain that worked for me, and he was authorized to go directly to the Assistant Secretary of the Navy to provide him with we did every third Tuesday of the month. We were up at the Pentagon briefing the senior Navy leadership. But what I did to create that barrier was to eliminate the folks that were going to slow down the process and give multiple reviews and make us do rework and everything. And so I kind of held that, that bureaucratic organization at bay, took the accountability with the knowledge and, of course, the risk that my team was going to go do the best they could to execute. And as it is, probably a really, really valuable thing to think about is that your team does not need you to check up on them or to micromanage them. Your team needs you to protect them from the bureaucracy around them. And so the best thing you can do is to make that, as impermeable as possible and allow them to do their good work. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, it does. And I think on that note, Jamie, thank you so much. I want to hold off on the rest of the questions here. Once again, thank you again. Very insightful, great questions, some great answers, new concepts. Ashan, I think you wanted to kind of touch on something here before we wrapped it up.
Sure. The first thing I'll do, Jamie, just especially on my behalf, and as well on McMaster, it's honestly a privilege to have you join us again. Obviously, your participation on Advanced Leadership Skills course was incredibly beneficial to the participants. And I'm very humbled that through OSET, we were able to have such a wide audience for you to engage with as well. So it's something I'm very happy with how this went in the discussions, especially focusing on cohesion, leadership, risk management, some excellent questions and feedback coming from the audience. And really that's a testament to the content that you're delivering through your wealth of experience. So from McMaster, myself, and I'm sure I'll hand it over to Costas as well. Thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, absolutely.
Perfect. So on that note, Jamie, I'll ask you to stop sharing your screen. I'm then going to just quickly share my screen. I'll give a quick overview on the McMaster program and this new collaborative opportunity with the OSET members. And then Costas, I'll hand it back over to you. Okay, so can everyone see my screen? It should just be a singular slide. Perfect. Costas, is looking good?
Yeah,
okay.
Looking good.
Fantastic. It's just one slide. I'll encourage everyone to maybe take a snapshot of it, or Costas, if you could maybe drop in that chat the www.mccmcmaster.ca link. But really, we'll be going into a bit more detail tomorrow. My focus right now is just to introduce a new collaboration between McMaster University and OSET. It's been a real labor of passion and intent behind these programs. But it's a new undertaking by the university. And really, we fall under this new group called the McMaster Certificates of Completion. We have 3 program streams. You'll see 3 columns to your left there. The first one is Circular Economy and Carbon Mitigation. The center one is the Industry Operations Leadership and Management Program. And then finally, we have the Advanced Technology and Industry 4.0 program. Really what we're looking at is this is a new approach to professional training. Each course you see here, so there's 14 listed, is 3 days long, 20 hours, all delivered live. But the main difference is that every one of the members instructing on the course are all leaders from industry. Just like Jamie joined us, he speaks to operational resilience on our Advanced Leadership Skills course. So very different from a traditional academic certificate program. We actually, I believe, only have one professor who is the professor in charge of the leadership program with the MBA program at McMaster. But other than him, we have about over 100 different industry experts covering senior leaders from businesses such as Boeing, Airbus, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, BMW, IBM, Cisco, Rolls-Royce, GE, General Motors as well, NASA, Lockheed Martin, of course, Jamie from Northrop Grumman, just to name just a handful as well. So we're very excited at the feedback we've been getting. I'm going to give you just a little bit of overview on what's coming down the pipeline. But really, we've got the Circular Economy and Carbon Mitigation program to your left. The 3 courses, Circular Economy, Carbon Mitigation, have been the foundational courses behind the program. Leading Transition is the one that we have scheduled next in February, really geared towards enabling leaders to transition their industry business units or departments or strategic businesses, incorporating attributes of sustainability. Then you've got my program stream, the Industry Operations and Leadership Management Program, covering 5 courses. The first one really geared towards fundamentals, making sure business leaders are enabled to move the needle within their businesses immediately. Industry Tactical Planning and Execution, focusing on executing within a tactical team through daily and weekly operations. Industry Business Unit Management, the third one down, really focus at that first leader of leader levels, which is really designed to introduce various attributes of advanced manufacturing technology, but also best practices to execute an industry business unit. We finally have Advanced Leadership Skills, which is designed to elevate the leadership skills across all levels of leadership within a business unit. And then finally, Advanced Operations Management, which is really geared towards pivoting, scaling up, or scaling down a industry business unit. That program is unique in that we encourage members to enroll as a full program participant, which sees members obtain all 5 courses and which awards a 6th certificate, the one at the top. And as such, they are also enrolled in our industry mentorship program, where we pair up 5 of the participants with an industry mentor. And we coach them over 10 months to provide a measurable improvement to their leadership performance. And that's assessed through 360 assessments within members, within your teams, your bosses, your peer leaders at your business. So it's an excellent program. We've had some really great feedback from the business leaders on the first cohort last year. And then we've got the third program, Advanced Technology and Industry 4.0. Did you see the 4 courses? Industry 4.0, Cyber Physical Systems, Advanced Manufacturing, Hybrid Engineering, Big Data, AI, Cybersecurity, and Automation. I won't be going into a bit more detail on that, as Andy, who's the program lead for that program, will be speaking to you tomorrow. I believe it's the same time as well, covering a workshop and introducing his program. And there's a few updates to it that I'll let him speak to. That program is looking to commence in February and would go till about the May timeframe. So really the value to OSET members, it's $2,000 Canadian plus HST for regular cost for any of our courses. But we've been able to arrange a subsidy through the NGen Amp Up program that all OSET members would qualify for each one of the courses at a cost of $750 Canadian plus HST. So which we're very, very excited to engage OSET's leadership team and roll this out as well. So to give you an idea, for the ILM program, the leadership one, that brings the cost down from $10,000 down to $3,750 plus HST. There's a number of other activities we do, quarterly networking sessions, and we're also piloting a continuous learning program on the industry leadership one, where past participants will be able to join on future courses on view-only mode so that they stay up to date on our content and can listen in on our new speakers with no additional cost. So our details are there. You've got our website, mccmcmaster.ca. My email address, korea@mcmaster.ca. If there's anyone that has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And I'll be going through a bit of detail, as well as Andy, on our lecture tomorrow. But that's really it. Very excited to share this with the team. I'm sure you'll hear more about it through OSET over the next few weeks. Thank you.